guys, this is a video response to my mate Dave. Dave was basically talking about his history and memories of the fabled computer magazine. Now, my computer magazine memories go back quite a while back. In fact, I think it's probably to about 1983. 1983 was probably when I first became aware of computers. I'd got to see a computer at school. They had an Apple II. Literally had one Apple II with one computer in the whole school. And then I kind of promptly forgot all about them. But then you couldn't help noticing, computers like the Spectrum 16K, Spectrum 48K started to get sort of quite popular. And so I then started to obviously nag mum and dad to get my computer, which they weren't up for really at all. They didn't have a lot of money, so I just had to keep nagging them. But I did get my very first computer magazine I ever bought. Now I did just dig it out a second ago. There it is. It is this. It is the Home Computer Course. Now, when was it published? Does it actually say? Just trying to see. It must have a date in it. There we go. In 1983. Yep, published in 1983. And basically this told you all about home computers. It was basically mastering your computer in 24 weeks. I didn't have a computer at that point, so my mum bought me this. Now, like what Dave was saying, I read every single word and took in every single picture of this thing. This was before I even had a computer. I mean, it had lots of like real iconic pictures like that. That just looked incredible. That was the future for me. But the page that I studied to within an inch of its life was, I thought it was actually the centre page. It's not. It is quite far in. I mean, there's the Apple II there. Here we go. What can a computer be used for? Home computers are used to run small businesses, handle accounts, do word processing, and can even keep records of golf club members and their handicaps, or help in designing interiors. It doesn't even mention games. That's the funny thing. Oh no, sorry, it does say apart from playing games. I do beg your pardon. But yeah, the two pages that I scrutinised religiously were these two. And it showed you, it gave you the pros and cons of every single computer that I could see that was available. I mean, there was 16 computers with the Atari 400, Atari 800, the BBC Micro, Colour Genie, Commodore 64, Commodore VIC-20, Dragon 32, Epson XX20, the Jupiter Ace, Lynx New Brain, Auric, Sinclair ZX81, Sinclair Spectrum, Sword M5, and the Texas TI-99/4A. Now, the one that I really wanted was the Commodore 64. The big problem was the price. It was marked at £299 back then. But the summary said it is, as a home computer, the Commodore 64 is good value. It can also be used as a business machine, but this requires expensive add-ons. So that was, I'm kind of getting away from the magazine side of things. That was, I used this computer to try and determine what computer I wanted. So I used this magazine to try and determine what computer I wanted. I eventually got this one, which was a Texas TI-99/4A. But once I quickly got rid of the Texas after I realised it was rubbish, because I only had one game for it. I then eventually saved up and I bought myself, I didn't save up, I bought myself a Commodore 64 on hire purchase. Now, at that point, I was buying what magazines were available. The one that just jumps out to me was Computer and Video Games. Computer Video Games had been going, I think, since about 1981. It had been going a really long time, so it had been out for probably a couple of years by the time I kind of got interested in it. But the thing I liked about Computer Video Games, well, apart from the fact it was the only magazine available really, unless you wanted some real dull, serious business type magazines, it featured most of the popular micros. and it also used to have a little feature all about arcade games. Now it was quite bizarre. I used to look at the reviews at arcade games, and it was something that I never ever got to experience. And now through the wonders of MAME, it's great to be able to play these games that I only ever saw pictures of, back in the day. But yeah, another big thing for the what do you call it, computer video games was the type-ins. Unfortunately, the basic on the C64 wasn't the greatest, and so because of that, there weren't that many games for it. Most of them seem to be the Spectrum, the BBC, the Tandy, things like that. So there weren't that many games, but the C6, not the C64, Computer Video Games was the magazine that I used to buy on a monthly basis, and it was wonderful because it just told you about everything. You got to see all the new games out for different systems, but eventually all that would change, and I think it would be, was it January 1985, I think it was, and that's when Zap came out. Now, Zap was released by Newsfield International. It was basically the Commodore 64's Crash. Crash was a magazine released for the Spectrum. I think it came out quite a bit before Zap, and I remember looking at Crash. My mate used to have a Spectrum, and he used to get Crash magazine, and I never really studied it in any great detail, but I always remember thinking that it was like a fanzine. It was a magazine that was written by fans. It wasn't particularly, the grammar and the punctuation and even the style of writing wasn't particularly of a high quality, but it was what we understood. It was written by people who played video games, and so it was always quite exciting because they would always be quite honest about what games were rubbish and what games weren't, were worth playing. But I says when Zap came out, it was such a breath of fresh air. It was honest, and the big thing for me about Zap was it had people who you kind of got to trust and you got to know. I mean, the original lineup was Gary Penn, Julian Rignall, and Paul Sumner. I think his name was it Paul Sumner? And then shortly after, Gary Liddon, he came along, replaced Paul Sumner. Well, I think Paul Sumner wasn't a real person. He was a made up. I don't know why they did that. They made up a third person, so he didn't actually exist, which was a bit strange. But yeah, the thing about Zap was each of the reviewers, they were almost completely honest. Again, they would tell you a game was garbage, don't touch it. And I mean, there was a few companies that probably went to the wall because of the honesty, from these guys from Zap. Which, it's not nice to hear a company going under, but at the end of the day, if they're trying to sell a computer game that's absolute garbage, then they don't deserve to sell it. So, to people like myself, Zap became the Bible. It became the yardstick that you used, to decide what you were going to buy. I mean, there was a few games that came out and I was looking forward to it, and they didn't review that well, and it was always a bit disappointing, but you knew that if Zap gave a game a good score, you could virtually guarantee you were going to enjoy it. I mean, I was always right into kind of shoot 'em ups, and Julian Rignall, he was the big kind of shoot 'em up person. So generally, if he liked a game, I knew I was going to like it. You knew it was going to be a good arcade game. Gary Penn, he was quite critical. He was probably the hardest reviewer to please. And then Gary Liddon as well, but they all had their characteristics. You knew where you stood with them. If one particular guy liked a game or whatever, you knew that's probably how I'm going to think. So yeah, Zap was a magazine that I bought from issue 1 for many years. There was what other Commodore 64 magazines? There was one called Commodore User, which was a bit dry and quite dull. The thing is, sometimes, you wanted to get, I mean, we didn't have the internet, so the only material that we could actually read about this hobby of ours were magazines. You know, newspapers didn't mention computer games. And sometimes, yeah, you would buy more than one magazine. I mean, I always got Zap, you know, always got that. But sometimes I would go up to John Menzies and I'd think I'm going to buy Commodore User just to read it, and it was always a bit, but you know, I couldn't get enough. I couldn't get enough reading about computer games. Then I'm trying to think. I eventually got. I was still buying. I mean, I was still buying computer and video games. I was still buying Zap. Then in 1987, I sold my Commodore 64 and I bought myself an Atari ST. At that point, there were a few with the kind of the sort of the 16-bit emerging. There were a few new magazines on the scene. There was one of the magazines that Dave mentioned was Ace magazine. Again, it's quite a dry magazine, but it covered 16-bit computers. I think it also covered. Did it also cover consoles? I think it might have done. I can't remember exactly. Did it? Maybe not. I can't remember if it did. I don't think it did. Now I think about it, I don't think Ace covered consoles. I might be talking nonsense, but yeah, I started buying Ace, and what was quite interesting about Ace, they would have like an interest line, so it would show you, you know, your interest. It would start off there and it'd go up and up and up and up, and then it would get to a point, it would peak, and then it would come down, and so you could sort of tell that the kind of higher it up it went, and the longer it stayed at the top meant it was going to hold your interest for quite a while. So there was that one. There was also the Games Machine, which I think it was Gary Penn. I think he was the editor for it. Again, it was primarily a 16-bit magazine. I mean, the magazine's always sort of backed the up and coming technology. You know, yeah, they did include the Commodore and the Spectrum, but people were wanting to read about 16-bit computers, and so these magazines, your Ace, your Games Machine, they supported the 16-bit. Then when I didn't have my Atari ST for that long, I eventually traded it in for a Commodore Amiga, and I was still buying the Games Machine. I was still buying computer and video games. I'd stopped buying Zap at that point because I didn't have a Commodore 64, and I think the original reviewers, they had all left, and it was new people that had come in. And I used to pick the magazine up in John Menzies and just have a look at it. And it's what Dave was saying. They were now putting out tapes on magazines. I mean, I'd actually moved across to the 16-bit computers by the time the magazines were supplying free games. So I never actually bought Zap when it had free games, unfortunately. But yeah, Zap had become this very, very, very thin pamphlet. I actually remember feeling quite sad picking it up on the shelf. I'm talking, you know, when would it be? Late 80s, early 90s, picking up the Zap magazine, and it was maybe like 10 pages thick, and it had like 2 reviews, but it used to come with like 1 or 2 tapes in the front with full games. So it was eventually no longer a magazine, it was just a means for companies to get rid of games that had no longer were making any money. So yeah, it was like I said, it was no longer a magazine. It was quite sad to kind of see that. So yeah, I'd stopped picking up Zap once I moved onto the Atari ST and Commodore Amiga. But Amiga wise, what did I buy? There was Amiga Power, which was a really good magazine. Again, it was more professional than Zap, but it was written by gamers for gamers. My favourite computer game journalist is a guy called Stuart Campbell. Now, Stuart actually went to the same school as my mate. He actually lived 10 minutes where I stay. Obviously Scottish, very, very outspoken. I mean, Stuart did not care about who he upset. He would speak his mind. I mean, He's got a phenomenally successful sort of Scottish independence web pages that Wings Over Scotland, I think they call it. You know, he's right into his politics, and he gets, you know, he does very, very well. But anyway, back on track. Amiga Power, again, it says it was written by gamers for gamers. So again, you could almost, I mean, virtually any game that Stuart Campbell liked, I could guarantee that I would like it. He had a style which was very unique, you know. He just, like I said, he wasn't afraid to tell. If he thought a game was crap, he would tell you it was crap. And conversely, if a game was good, he would just absolutely go to town on the superlatives, tell you exactly what made it good, why you had to buy it. And I could guarantee 100 times out of 100, if he recommended a game, I would go and buy it, or get a copy of it, as the case may be. But that's for another day. So yeah, Amiga Power was a great magazine. It just oozed passion. It had really great photographs. You know, they told you exactly what they thought of a game. Other games, there was CU Commodore User Amiga, so it became CU Amiga. Again, it was very much in the middle. It was kind of businessy software, hardware, you know, reviewing printers, reviewing modems, graphic cards, that kind of stuff. And it also did games. And again, I bought it because I just wanted to read about computers. So I wasn't content just to have, you know, your Amiga format, or not sorry, Amiga format, your Amiga Power. I wanted to get as many magazines as I possibly could. So yeah, Commodore User, or CU Amiga, I think they called it. Again, it was quite a dry magazine. Similar to that, there was Amiga Format. Amiga Format, again, it was very much aimed at the more mature reader. You know, probably more mature than I was at that point. I mean, it had, you know, its main part was games. It also featured business software, hardware reviews, that kind of thing. And again, I bought it because they used to give you free free discs. They weren't really given, at that point, when I was getting discs on magazines, it was never really full games, unfortunately. It was usually demos of a game. Some of the demos, like, Sensible Soccer, you could just play it and play it and play it. So some of the demos they gave away were excellent. One of my favourite demos that I got was, what was it called again? It was made by Blitz Basic. You know what? I was trying to remember the name of it. I can't remember. I'll see if it comes back to me. Basically, it's a racing game. It's similar to Super Sprint. You just drove around, you know, the different tracks, but it was kind of almost like rendered. The cars were rendered. What was it called again? It was by Blitz Basic. Acid Software, that's who made it. Oh man, that's terrible. Doesn't matter. But again, it was a demo, and it was awesome. You could just play. I think it had maybe 2 tracks, and you could just play it and play it and play it. But yeah, computer Amiga Format. Again, it was quite a dry magazine, and it was the type of magazine I would flick through, and you know, I could probably read it in 20 minutes because there's probably more of it I didn't actually read. I just found it quite a boring magazine. I was still buying the Games Machine, which sadly didn't last that long. It went to the wall fairly quickly. I don't know how many I was going to say episodes, how many issues actually came out. Same with Ace magazine, it eventually died. I don't know whether it's because once people had decided what machine they were buying, you would rather buy a magazine dedicated to that one machine than buy one that was multiple, because again, it's what Dave was saying, I wasn't really interested in reading about Spectrum games or Atari ST games because I had an Amiga. I wanted to read about Amiga games. So yeah, then after the Amiga, I eventually got a Super Nintendo, and an absolutely awesome magazine was called Super Play. It was very, very manga-esque. It had the artwork in Super Play was awesome. The reviews always had full colour graphics, full colour screenshots. The only slight downside to it for me was the majority of games, or maybe not the majority, but a large number of games that reviewed were import only. And so you were looking at these games and you realised I would never actually get to play this until it maybe came out in the UK. And back then, there's people they were importing games, they were paying 60, 70 quid for a game. But back in, 1991, that was 60 quid was a lot of money. It was a lot more than it is now. But yeah, Superplay, it was an amazing magazine. Again, I don't think it lasted, I don't know how many years it ran for. They're actually quite collectible now, just because of the really, really pretty artwork. It was probably the best SNES magazine. I mean, Nintendo had their official Nintendo magazine, but the problem with that is because it was official one, I think sometimes they tended to give games better scores than they probably merited, just because it was an official magazine, so they wanted people to buy their games. I only had a Mega Drive for a very short time, so I didn't really buy any specific Mega Drive magazines. Another really good magazine it was mainly the sort of consoles, which I bought when I had my SNES, and it was Mega Machines. Not only Mean Machines, not Mega, Mean Machines. It was Julian Rignall, he was the editor for the magazine. Again, it featured, I think eventually it was Mean Machines, then eventually went Mean Machines Nintendo, i.e. the SNES, and the NES, and then you got a separate Mean Machines Sega. So they kind of split it, because not many people had both consoles. You either had a Mega Drive or you had a SNES. Maybe the people with lots of money had the both. But yeah, so I used to buy like Mean Machines Nintendo, and again, I says it was written by gamers for gamers. The passion, the screenshots, it always made you want to buy every game. But back then that was just not a possibility. So that was kind of the 16-bit computers, and then eventually when I got my PlayStation, I think the only magazine out at that point was the official PlayStation magazine. Now it used to give away demo discs. Again, you could play like one round, you could play one track of Destruction Derby or whatever it is, or you could play International Superstar Soccer for 30 minutes, not 30 minutes, 30 seconds, something like that, whatever. But they would give away these demos, and again, it was good because you're basically getting like a free game, albeit a very, very kind of limited game. But again, it was good. It was great to read through and look at the reviews and think, that's the game I'm going to get. I need to get this, I need to get that, and you knew kind of what you wanted to avoid. It basically meant that you didn't have to. You were never going to buy a Duff game again unless there were some. I think there was quite a bit of backhanders going on in the computer magazine industry back then. There was companies paying magazines money to give them a good review, because some of the games, I can't remember any offhand, were absolutely panned by the critics. They were saying this is crap. Then you look at the official PlayStation magazine, it was getting like 10 out of 10. So I think there was quite a bit of that going on, unfortunately. But yeah, so there was, I can't even remember what they're called. There was quite a few PlayStation magazines that eventually came out, which I started buying because I always felt they gave a more kind of honest review of the game. So, if they said a game was crap, you knew to avoid it. If they said it was good, you generally, you could kind of guarantee that you were going to enjoy the game. It was definitely going to be of a high quality. Other magazines, there was one called Zero, which wasn't out for very long. I can't remember much about it. One magazine that I really liked was called The One. I'll see if I can put some pictures actually of these magazines as I'm going through them. The One magazine, again, I think it became The One. Then they split it, became The One Amiga. And again, the artwork was really, really nice. They always gave big 4-page reviews to games. The only thing about that I felt was sometimes maybe half the games in the magazine you weren't interested in. So it meant that you ended up flicking through, you flicked past all these games because you weren't interested in them. Another excellent magazine was called is it Maximum? I think it was called Maxim. Maximum. I can't remember. I'll put a picture of it just now anyway. I think it was Maximum. And again, it was a gloriously produced magazine, full of really, tons and tons of artwork. Unfortunately, it didn't last long. It really didn't last long at all. I think it maybe lasted 6 issues, if that. After I got rid of the... no, I didn't get rid of it. Once I got a PC, I mean, there was more PC magazines than you could shake a stick at. There was PC Gamer. There was also PC Format. Oh, you know what? I can't even remember half of them. There was just tons and tons and tons of PC magazines. And like Dave, I used to sometimes go to a shop and I'd buy 4 or 5 magazines. And you'd come away thinking, I've just spent the equivalent money on magazines and I could have got myself a brand new game. But, that was what you wanted, because you were getting, at that point, they were giving away CDs with tons and tons. I mean, I remember when before I got my PC, I remember picking up, I don't know what it was, it might have been PC Format, and it had this CD, and it had like a list of all the stuff that you could use it for, and I'm like, all the different game demos and public domain games, Space Invaders and art packages. And I remember thinking, that must be amazing to be able to get all that on a magazine disc. So like I said, I eventually got my PC and I started buying all these magazines. But I found out that as time wore on, I was reading less and less. And it got to a point, I mean, that I was just actually finding magazines really boring. They seemed to, I don't know what it was, they seemed to go into too much detail, and a lot of the games that they were reviewing were like RPGs, they were real-time strategy games, SimCity, and I just used to stand there and flick past half the games that were in it, and I realised that it got to a point I was actually buying the magazine just to get the disc. But you were paying $4.99, $5.99. So it wasn't, after a good number of years, I stopped buying magazines. I just felt that I wasn't getting anything back from them. And of course, the internet has come along and it has practically killed magazines. I mean, I can't remember the last time I bought a magazine for a current system. I mean, there's been the very odd time I've maybe been in an airport and I think I'll get something to read, and I pick up a magazine, PS4, and it's like $6.99. And I'm like, nah, I'm not interested. You can just go into Google, you can go into YouTube, you can watch a video, you can see exactly what you're getting with a game now. If you want to hear people talking about old games, you can watch YouTube channels, whatever. So I think the computer magazine has definitely had its day. It was a fantastic thing. It was part and parcel of the excitement of this industry in the early days. Because it was the only thing that we had to rate a game, other than looking at a screenshot, or your mate telling you that it was an amazing game. There was no such thing as internet, so we had to rely on magazine reviewers telling us what they thought of a game, and you made your kind of judgment whether you bought it or not. But yeah, I've not bought a magazine for a long time. The only magazine I do buy now, and I've been subscribed to it since issue 1, is Retro Gamer. Now, Retro Gamer, I've been quite critical of it in the past, and yeah, again, I mean, I think I've got about a year's worth, which I've not even read. When I first got Retro Gamer magazine, I used to sit and read every single page, every word, look at the pictures. It was wonderful. I think now, I mean, they've been going for 10 years, I think. They've been going for about 10 years. So that's a lot of magazines. I mean, yeah, it must be about 150, 160 magazines now. I think, I do personally feel that they're starting to kind of get a bit stale. I mean, I used to be able to read a magazine. It used to take me a week to read through it all, digest every single word. Now, I can sit and flick through it, and I find I'm getting to the last page quite quickly, because there's probably more in it now that I don't read than I do read. But you know what? I still think it's great that they're producing it. I would rather they continued than knocking it on the head, because it's the only magazine out there that features retro stuff. I mean, in fact, there's a magazine. What was it called? Was it Game? It's called Game again? I think it was. And it had a retro section, which I always loved. It had a few pages of retro. It used to look at Spectrum games. There was also a magazine which I've completely forgot to mention, called Edge magazine. Now, Edge, when it first came out, I mean, the production values of it, it's stunning. Again, it's really well produced. The pictures, the photography, really, really high quality. But I think Edge became slightly up their own backside eventually. You know, I think they were kind of losing the plot about what games were. Computer games are just fun. They're games. They're there to be enjoyed. And Edge they were talking about them like they were some kind of work of art, and they would pan a game or say a game was wonderful. And it just kind of, I used to think to myself, wait a minute, it's supposed to be fun, this hobby. And the way they spoke about some of the games, I just got completely turned off, and I stopped buying Edge magazine. I mean, I think Edge is still produced. Edge did do a feature for quite a while called Retro, and it was basically dedicated issues purely to old systems. Some of them were very, very good. Again, really high quality. I've got quite a few of them still up in the loft, which I'm going to hang on to. But yeah, Edge was good at the time, but I think it's just ran its course. But yeah, that is my memories of computer magazines. There's been so many over the years. I mean, there was like was it the Big K? It was an 8-bit magazine back in the day. There's been so many, but that's what, as gamers back in the early 80s, that's what we had to use to get information about what games were coming out. You know, you get wee snippets. This game was coming out. You get preview shots, and it would just whet your appetite for a game. I can always remember seeing pictures of Gauntlet, and I could not wait for Gauntlet to get released. And you know, Zap would publish a picture, and I thought, oh, that looks amazing. And ultimately, I was quite disappointed when the game did come out. You know, so sometimes it wasn't always the best result. But yeah, like I say, computer magazines, they were part and parcel of this hobby of ours. I don't think they have a place as much nowadays. I'm sure people still buy them. It'd be interesting to know what kind of how many issues they sell now in comparison to what they sold in the mid-90s. I think it'd probably be far less, because really the internet is bang up to date. As soon as a game comes out, if a game gets released today, you can guarantee you can read a review of it tonight. You know, it's that quick, whereas back then you had to wait when the magazine getting published. But yeah, real interesting topic by Dave. It's been quite good fun actually, just reminiscing myself about all the memories of these things. So anyway guys, as usual, thank you very much for watching.